everyone, today we're talking about becoming celebrated, investing in an IRA. I'm Isaiah Goodman, Chief Financial Advocate at Becoming Financial. What the heck is an IRA? I've heard some people call it an IRA. It's an individual retirement account. It's a type of a retirement account that you put investments inside of to grow your money a certain type of way. So today I just wanted to give you a little bit of an example about the most common type of investment account out there, and really how it works and how it could work for you and your financial planning. Number one, individual retirement account is almost always tax deductible. It grows tax deferred and then it comes out taxable. So similar to a 401k, a lot of times they allow you to put that money in pre-tax. Similar sort of thing with tax deductible, but it's not actually pre-tax. So some people might be able to say, hey, it comes out at pre-tax at the end of the day. It kind of does, but you have to work with your accountant. This is why we're talking around, pre-tax and tax deductible. It's right around the middle of April. Taxes are due. Sometimes we'll hear people say, hey, I opened up an IRA. I put in my tax deductible contribution, and that lowered my taxes for the year. That totally can work, but how it actually works is it deducts from your taxes up to $5,500 per year. It's not pre-tax like a 401k that actually puts the money aside before you get the taxes. Hopefully that makes sense. It's just a little bit of, is it coming before or after? Is it deductible? Regardless, the monies still grow tax deferred. So as those investments and anything inside of the IRA grows, you're not getting taxed on that gain. But when you take it out at 62, 65, 67, and beyond, you do have to pay taxes on it. There are some stipulations in terms of how much and your different ages and how much you can make, all of these sort of things. Most common, $5,500 per year is tax deductible, and it's up to $6,500 if you're over the age of 50. Well, what that means is if you want to contribute $10,000 to an IRA, you can only do $5,500 per year. You have to do the remainder next year. You can do rollovers, so that's a little bit different. You might have $20,000 from an old 401k. You can roll that over into an IRA. That's a different type of deal. It's not a contribution, it's a rollover. So that's how that works. You leave a job, you roll it into an IRA. That's totally okay. You can do more than $5,500 that year. But say you're 65, you had some old different accounts and things like that. You can't contribute anymore. You're at the point where you're going to be taking money from it. You actually have what's called required minimum distributions at the age of 70 and a half. The government starts to force you to take out a required minimum to pay those taxes that are due. Another big thing is how much are you making? If you have a group plan where you're able to contribute to a 401k and you make between $63,000 to $73,000 as an individual, they start to actually phase you out and say you can't deduct some of this contribution for your IRA. The whole reason is you might be able to contribute up to $18,000 per year pre-tax in a 401k. They don't want you to be able to do another $5,500, taking you over $23,000 in a year, basically, pre-tax. So they start to phase you out if you make quote unquote too much. If you're married, it's $101,000 up to $121,000. Basically doubles if your spouse has a plan but you don't. So for example, married couple, both are working, both have access to a 401k. You can't deduct that IRA contribution if you're making over $121,000. But if one person is married, the other is a stay-at-home spouse, then you can make up to about $200,000 before you can't deduct it. So again, just make sure you're checking with your accountant. But there's just some rules. You're not always able to deduct the $5,500, and I think people just kind of assume you always are. Last two things, if you actually make too much, you can still contribute. So this is where I think people get confused. I can still contribute $5,500 per year if I make over those certain benchmarks, but I can't deduct that on my taxes. So every single year, our household might make $200,000, $300,000, $400,000. I can contribute up to $5,500 per Social Security number every single year. It grows tax deferred, and then I can take it out, and it becomes taxable at that income rate. So if you make too much, you can still contribute. It's just not tax deductible. And a couple other ideas, something we'll talk about in the future or something to work with a financial advisor and accountant on, is you can convert it to a Roth IRA. So if you make too much and there's some issues there with the deductibility, you can contribute, not deduct it, and then in the future you can take a taxable conversion to a Roth. So just another way to plan about how do you manage your taxes both today and in the future, being as smart as you can with your retirement. But just to recap, overall, an IRA is not an actual investment. It's the umbrella that the investments go in. Typically, it's tax deductible. If you make too much, you can't do that, but it always grows tax deferred and comes out taxable at retirement.